Hi there, I'm Timothy Linsdau, video producer and Christian. I also live on the border of the U.S. and Mexico. The actual port is only a couple miles from my house. And I see we're in the paper, they're talking about asylum seekers forced to band together. Let's talk about that today. Like and comment on my video and subscribe to support my channel if you would. Thank you. And talk more about these issues on the border. You know, it says in a border city, asylum seekers forced to wait are banding together. Now, for what I best understand, I've spoken to Border Patrol or Customs about what the issues are on the border. And one of the main things that's happening is that the U.S. is not housing these people claiming asylum. They're sending them back to the city on the Mexican side. And here that would be Tijuana. Now recently, one of the problems that's happened in Tijuana is that the nonprofits that have been housing these people that are coming from not only Central America, but all over. China has a heavy group that keeps trying to come in. Just people from all over. The coyotes, which are people who transport illegal or undocumented people to the border, are probably telling people that all you got to do is come to the border, claim asylum, and you're in. But you're not. They're trying to control that flood and making them go back on the Mexican side. And that's what really is going on with that. But I am also speaking to Customs that when somebody comes and claims asylum, they're interviewed and processed, and they'll end up with like a half-inch document of information with these people. Because the people who claim asylum and say that they're in danger of the government and being pursued, and that's what the asylum is all about. But people that come in and say they're claiming asylum because of a gang member or some crime issue, that's not what you claim asylum for. You claim asylum for oppression or fear of a government, a country. And that's not quite what's going on. But what then happens is these people are processed, they go back, and in Tijuana, the Mexican government has stopped supporting these organizations that were housing people because the Mexican government says the money that the nonprofits down there are spending is being misused. So they've just shut that down. What's the truth there? I don't know. But it's definitely putting pressure on those people. But they're as the headline shows here, they're banding together. And they do. They get their tent groups. They get together in a warehouse or somewhere, wherever they can. People are providing some food and facilities for them where they can. So they're getting together and trying to take care of themselves. They will gather together and form some type of a process of who goes next and how many go. And they want to be as close to the border, of course, as they can be. And then if they're allowed in to be processed or, come before a judge, and that can be a long time. One of the problems before is, from what I've been told, an asylee would come into the country, claim asylum, be processed, given a court date and let go. Well, they could just melt into the population in America, which could be anybody, could be relatives that hide them. And that's what happens. But now they're just sending them back. One thing one of the officers told me is they had, you've heard these cases, kids coming to the border, just kids, little kids, and saying they want to claim asylum. Well, the Customs are saying, well, where's your parents? Oh, well, they're down around the corner somewhere, which could mean anything. Who knows? So the Customs would actually contact Mexican police to come and pick up these kids. They would tell them the story. So all kinds of tragedy and sad things happen. Another issue I've heard is kids get trafficked for the worst of things, and that people bring them to the border and say they're their kid with no papers, no information. Could be anybody. So in a way, they're trying to protect these kids in some way by not letting them come across the border. Wow, what a crazy mess. But anyway, these people are fending for themselves. You know, they're being told by somebody that if you come to the U.S., you know, it's a piece of cake. You can just cross over the border, claim asylum. Now, recently, some of the, as I've reported before, they'll come across en masse, which overwhelms the border control. And I've mentioned before that the cartels are actually becoming travel agencies. They encourage people in those countries to pay them a bunch of money. They put them on an express bus, bring them to a drop-off point on the border that is set up to receive them. They give them instructions on what to do, and these people cross. But now they're being forced to go back, and so they're stuck in limbo, and of course encouraged to return from their home of origin. And politicians use that in all kinds of ways. You know, they saying that you're racist, whatever things politicians will use to gain power, they do it, unfortunately. Sometimes I think they're worse than any of the cartel in that sense. But I guess one thing is the cartel looks at it as as a business, travel business, and expensive travel. And fortunately, they're not bringing in drugs with them. Well, they do. They get mixed in with the people who are just trying to make a better life. And that's another problem. It makes it more dangerous and difficult to control the drug traffic. So there you are. So this asylum thing, it's not just the asylum issue. There's things that create more problems, such as drugs, as I have mentioned, and trafficking. So it continues to be a mess. I see here it says coming from Guatemala, Nicaragua, Mexico, and Cuba. One thing one of the customs agents told me is they weren't accepting asylees from Mexico because they don't recognize Mexico as a danger to its citizens. So if they're claiming they're a danger, the U.S. is not going to accept that. So they're not going to accept them as asylees because it's a neighboring country and we know who's there and who's in charge. So there's an example of what can happen. People in now this particular location, San Ysidro, the weather in this area is some of the best in the world. So if you're going to cross anywhere right here, it'd be great. But people in the desert regions really suffer, and in fact it's dangerous because if you're out there in the open and it's over 100 degrees, it's not a great thing, and to have enough water and food to survive, very, very difficult. So they gather together and they do the best they can to try to hold it all together. As a result, thousands of people along the Mexican border don't get an interview with an asylum officer maybe for months. And that's quite possible because you get so many people. The system's all backed up. Even to line up to talk to an officer and get an interview, then you got to go through the whole who knows what length of time to finally get before a judge. And as I have mentioned before, you cannot take a lawyer in with you to see that judge, but they do get instructions from the lawyer about what's going to happen or what they should say or how they should act. That's a whole nother process. So it's creating this whole dynamic of groups and activists and trying to deal with these people coming up here. And the border patrol and customs trying to handle the whole thing. So anyway, it continues to be a struggle and overload. I mean, we have a regular system that allows 1 million people a year to come legally into the U.S. And all these people were thinking they could just walk right in and they can't. So it's a sad situation, yes. They're encouraged to go back and try to do it right. That's just how it is. Sad story. So, if you will, like and comment on my videos, subscribe to my channel to support it. And even in these difficult times, get out there and make it a great day.